Hello, I am Michael Kourosh and thank you for joining us on Design Santa Barbara. This week we are in continuing discussion related to the recent tragedies that have hit our community. Earlier this season we had our good friend Tom Reed, Executive Director of Unity Shop of Santa Barbara, on the show and discussed Unity Telethon. Just before the telethon, the Thomas Fire broke out and the Unity Shop in true fashion sprung into action, assisting the community in numerous ways. Tom has agreed to sit down with us again, discuss Unity Shop's relief efforts. Tom, thank you for being on Design Santa Barbara today.
It's an honor to be back. Thank you so much for the invitation.
So a lot has happened since we last saw you. Can you please tell us the immediate action Unity Shop took after the Thomas Fire?
When you say a lot has happened, boy, that's the understatement of the year. 280,000 acres burned. Wow. Unity Shop is designated by VOAD. Now, not all of your viewers would know what VOAD stands for. It's called Volunteer Organizations Active in Disaster. That came about after Katrina in New Orleans, because truck and trailer loads of things were sent to Katrina to help, but there was no distribution. And so it never hit the target. A lot of it just ended up going away, not going to the people that had needs. And so it started this national effort to try to organize communities after the first responders leave. I was the chairman of VOAD for a couple of years, and we got it organized here, and National Red Cross says that the Santa Barbara County is actually one of the best prepared areas in the country to handle disasters. Now you evaluate this disaster, it is monstrous, and so many people impacted, and dramatic impact on our community. So Unity being the active in all of that stuff, we know who's available, which agencies are available to help after the first responders are done. And this is about a 2-year process called long-term recovery. If you've lost everything, and you may remember I've lost 2 houses. So I know a little bit about what that feels like. So there's a little emotional hand-holding, there's a lot of support, and the freedom to come over about a 2-year process and receive what you need to start over again. That's what Unity does. Now, this disaster caused us to jump into action a whole lot earlier. As an example, when the fire started, we had 2 employees that actually live in Ojai. And the fire, we know, was just raging through there. Power was out. They got a knock on the door at 3 o'clock in the morning. Fire department, evacuate now. Urgent, get out. They fumbled around with a flashlight for 2 seconds and said, well, this is crazy. And they grabbed the pets, put them in the car, and got out of there, as did many. There were 100,000 people evacuated in the early days of that fire. And it certainly devastated most, that whole area. I don't know, 750 houses burned down in Ventura. But they left with nothing, as did many. So they didn't have a toothbrush, they didn't have a comb, they didn't have personal care, hygiene, none of that. Didn't have a change of clothes, didn't have a blanket, depending on where they're gonna stay at a friend's house, didn't have anything. And so Unity Shop put a special disaster services area together almost overnight, because we have an inventory, a starting inventory for all of these things that are traditionally needed in a disaster and in an emergency. So we have all of that stuff, all the personal care stuff, and we set it up like a little shop so that people can select what they need. Just take it's all free of charge, but it's such a benefit, not just long-term. Now that doesn't even start until sometime in February, when people find another place to live if they've lost everything. But now, if they're staying in a second bedroom, a guest house, even a hotel, they're gonna need a change of clothes. Some of them need groceries. A lot of people out of work.
True.
All the household, domestic, landscapers, all of that in Montecito. Then you've got Coast Village Road, Upper Village, all of those are out of business, shut down. And so all during this time, they have been saying, our income is interrupted. Now, a lot of them can get back home. Many of them, we've heard, actually lived in that Montecito area. We think it's just for wealthy people, but that's not necessarily the case. But even the ones that have a home, income interruption is pretty dramatic. You got a family, you need food. So we've been providing groceries for those people. So it opens the door. You say, what kind of an impact has it had on Unity Shop? It's pretty dramatic.
Well, it is pretty horrible times out there.
Exactly.
And we are so lucky having you and your Unity Shop in our town, which provides quite a lot of assistance to people who need it.
I appreciate that.
My next question for you is, how did your effort relief change with the mudslides?
Well, initially, Thomas Fire, and this is key because the Office of Emergency Management is something we're very involved with, along with VOAD. Now, we had a meeting with them, with all the players, from United Way to Salvation Army, Food Bank, Red Cross, everybody that's involved, Direct Relief, it keeps going. And so in the meeting, I asked the question, is the Thomas Fire, which is mostly Ventura, we had some houses burned up here, which obviously we would be readily available to take care of those people from that, but so much in Thomas Fire in Ventura, are they considered two different disasters? Thomas Fire Ventura, Mudslide Montecito? No. The answer is it's all one disaster according to United Way in both areas, Red Cross in both areas, FEMA in both areas. So it's all just one disaster. So now we moved from thinking, well, long-term recovery and a few of the people that have been coming up for groceries, those kinds of things. We do have clients traditionally all year long from Ventura at the Unity Shop. We don't solicit referral agencies from Ventura County, but if people can't get their needs met, they've been coming in the past. Because, sadly, there isn't a Unity Shop in Ventura. There isn't really anything like that. They have Food Share, which is the equivalent of their food bank that gives food to agencies that give to pantries and things, but nothing quite like Unity Shop. So we knew we were going to be playing a role more in the long term for getting people back again. And what that means is furniture, kitchen appliances, linens, towels, pots and pans. It keeps going. I mean, you just think about starting over with nothing, and that's a gradual process. And so that's sort of the way we thought about Ventura Thomas Fire. Now you have the immediacy of all of these people being evacuated. 7, 8, 9, 10,000 people, mandatory evacuation still in Montecito. And so they're gradually coming back in now, but what they find is not all that comfortable. So we're still active. So the immediacy and their sense of urgency and the immediate response is really the difference. The mudslide brought it home much more, local, and Thomas Fire is a little bit more long term.
Well, unfortunately. So I know you have been to Montecito. Can you describe what have you seen in Montecito?
Oh, the stories are just sad. I've already told you off camera about my hockey playing teammate, Dr. Mark Montgomery. I played hockey with him the Monday night before it started, and we got off the ice and got home, both of us, about midnight, and by 4 in the morning he was gone. The mudslide had taken him and his daughter. So it becomes intensely personal when you know someone, and I wouldn't doubt that most of your viewers would know somebody who's lost a family member or lost their home or been so dramatically impacted by this that it becomes really, truly a community impact and an emotional level impact that's heightened because we know these people. It's not just, a flood in Texas. Gosh, what a sad affair. And it is. But when you know people, and it's right up the road. I mean, it's just right in our hometown. It's a disaster. It's a catastrophe, really, when you talk about the loss of life.
So true, unfortunately. How will Unity Shop be assisting in the coming weeks and months? Probably a lot of our viewers would like to know. I know you're there always, but especially now, you're more needed than ever.
Well, yeah, there's an agent, or not an agency, but a facility that's been opened at Calvary Chapel. Very kindly, they opened their sanctuary for probably 30 agencies, from FEMA to unemployment to the building department to Cox Cable to all of it. And then there's a Red Cross, and Unity Shop is there. And so when they register and get a case number and they begin this process of case management, that has funneled people to us so that they can have a quicker understanding of what we can do to help, and immediately we can get them help down at the Unity Shop. Many have heard the name, they know the brand, but they haven't really been familiar with what we do. Many of them have never needed our help, and so they weren't really kind of up to speed on the information part, but they're certainly grateful to know that we're there, because so often, you know, when I lost my homes, there wasn't an agency, anything like the Unity Shop. So we were totally on our own, and there's a loneliness in the midst of that when you don't have a home base, you don't have a place to come. We had someone who came to us just recently. His father's house had burned down. He was raised there. His father was, fortunately, he's over 90 years old. He was actually in the hospital, not from the mudslide, but he just went through the emotional communicating of what this means to have lost everything that his father had kept, all the mementos and all the meaningful sentimental things, and then he'd lost where he had been raised. Another couple came to us, a young couple. His wife is 38 weeks pregnant, and he cannot get home. He can't get to his home. So now they're staying in a friend's second bedroom, but she's about to have a baby, so everything is crazy. So bringing them down to Unity, we've got groceries for them, that helps. Change of clothes, because they got out with just the clothes on their back. We've got brand new baby items. You don't want to put a used onesie on your new baby, right? And so we've got all the socks and baby blankets and all the things, and they're so grateful. And so the stories keep going. Every person has a different story, but we have one catastrophe that's caused all of it. And I'm just, you know, I'm very proud of the Unity Shop. I had very little to do with putting it together, so I can be as proud as everybody in the community should be that we have a Unity Shop that's able to help.
So my next question is, how you anticipate these strategies will affect the community in the long run? What will be the coming years look like?
Well, some of that is yet to be revealed, I think, because none of us have been able to have access back in there. When the character of a community changes, it's a little hard to anticipate. When I had the mudslide, I can tell you, because we were there when it happened, a loud noise, if you were there when it happened and so much of it was voluntary evacuation, and those people largely were there and heard the sound, the explosion of that natural gas thing that took out and started houses on fire, and then those boulders. There's a sound that is unlike anything you've ever heard when you have earth moving as fast as it went. I mean, and it was rolling downhill, and any one of those boulders would have taken you out or your house out and your car. I mean, we've seen the devastation on camera. We've seen the news coverage, but to go back in there, there's a whole additional emotional impact that our community will probably suffer from. So some people are going to say, well, I can't live there anymore. That could happen. Other people are going to eagerly rebuild because it is a community. And I think part of the impact is 2 months ago, most of the conversations were kind of superficial. You know, how you doing? Fine. Move on. You know, I mean, it was like ops normal. Everything was sort of just the way it's kind of supposed to be. But all of a sudden, the conversations are much deeper. They're more meaningful. People are coming alongside. And even though it's the worst of times for those that are impacted, it brings out almost the best in everyone. Here's your desire to communicate with the community what's going on so that they can be aware of it and we can all kind of participate in helping. Everybody that I talk to kind of wants to, what can we do to help? I mean, there are businesses coming to us, thankfully, and they want to donate some clothing or some, you know, I was at my dentist's office yesterday. They want to give us toothbrushes and all the stuff that people are going to need. It brings out the best in people, even in the worst of times. And so it's been said that we may never get over this, but we will get through it. And somehow there's healing in being together to talk about what's going on here. You know, it's not just a material, physical thing. It impacts everybody in an emotional and sometimes a spiritual way that opens the door for conversations that are just a little bit deeper than the norm. And in a sense, when you come away from that, having experienced all of that on a community basis, you're tighter as a community. You know, we can talk about 805 strong, and that's a wonderful thing. You can't deny the adversity, the sorrow, the dramatic impact on people. And it's heartbreaking when you experience the stories. But I have to say, in my own experience, after the fact, right in the middle of it, you don't want to hear about it, you know, but I think I'm a stronger person for having been through it. I've got some stronger relationships and friendships as a result of it. My hope is all of that and more would come for our own community.
Well, you have been assisting everybody, and we are very lucky having your Unity shop in our town, and so you have been giving. But my main question is, and one of the reasons I have you on the show, is how can people assist the Unity shop and your relief efforts?
Well, I appreciate the question, and I can tell you what not to do. This is people are eager to, as I mentioned, they want to do something. They want to help. And one of the things people want to do is they say, I've got some clothing, you know, it's in my garage someplace, and somebody can get some good use out of it. That's my favorite T-shirt, and that pair of tennis shoes, they're out in the garage someplace, and they were the most comfortable. Somebody's can. No, if you have lost everything, or you're in the midst of a crisis like this, the last thing you would ever choose, given the opportunity to choose, would be somebody's used clothing. And so it's counterintuitive a little bit, because you know they have needs, but their preference, if they were given a preference, people that need things, would be to come to something like the Unity shop, where things are hanging. They're new, they're sized. It feels like a store, even though there's no charge. And it brings a little dignity. It gives them a little freedom to choose. I'll tell you a humorous story that makes the point. When I lost my house to a fire, I had a lady in my church who said, you know, my son is tall like you. I made some shirts for him. He didn't like them, but they would fit you, she said. I know why he didn't like these shirts. Michael, the pocket was under the armpit. I mean, she didn't make them very well, and the material wasn't anything that I would choose. Now that's humorous in some ways, except the picture is now she gave me something and would really sort of expect to see me wearing the shirts that she gave me. So now I'm the one who's just lost everything. I'm the one impacted, but I have to manage her expectations, right? And then if we give things to people that they would never choose, kind of, those pots and pans, you know, I've got some new ones now, but those old ones are really, there's some good, you give somebody a used set, now they've got to like store them someplace. They've got to, and they don't have a house yet, and to put them in, and they wouldn't choose them in the first place, but now they have to haul around some stuff that they wouldn't have chosen. So it becomes a burden. So there are things that don't work. And at the Unity shop, we've been around for 100 years. We've found a few things that work really well and a whole bunch of things that don't work at all. And some of it is counterintuitive. And so people, like myself, I appreciate the question and to be able to communicate with folks. Now, United Way, Red Cross, Food Bank, everybody, Unity shop, they're all saying we need donations financially. And literally, that's probably the best thing. Some people would like to go to the grocery store and buy peanut butter for us or boxed cereal, because that's our number one and number two staple. And we can never really kind of get enough of that. And that's fine. Food items, if people want to donate food or do a food drive or take care of us in that way with food items, we have a list of things that we can, it's on our website, and it's fairly easy to get, unityshop.org, and we appreciate that. Now, we can buy much more food than they can. We can leverage the dollars, in other words, put a couple donations together and buy some bulk food that is exactly what we need. We might not need peanut butter right at that moment, but we could need baby food, or we need juice, or we need some other important staple like produce, the healthy, nutritious kind of food that we like to have more of. We can also offer a tax deduction, so that helps from a tax point of view, and they don't have to haul the food and make the delivery. You know, there's some easy things, but if they want to donate food and feel more comfortable with that, we'd invite them not only to go buy it, but bring it down to us, and we'll show you what we do at the Unity Shop. It's actually quite an eye-opener. And then new clothing, almost of any kind. All the personal care items, those kind of things are very helpful. Again, we know how to buy that stuff, and most of it we can buy at huge discounts through the closeouts, and we know how to do that, almost at a 90% discount. It's unusual for a charity to be able to do that. We're only limited by the number of dollars we have, and so the dollar donations, but all of those things that we talk about are necessary and needed, and blankets and robes and coats and all of those things. I mean, if they're new, you know, most of the year we can take gently used things. Our Job Smart program is professional clothing for people that are getting a job interview, have an appointment for a job interview. And we help them with interview help and tips on taking an interview, you know, resume help and those kinds of things. And people that, most of that is donated. But in the midst of a disaster, when there's a lot of people that want to do something and we receive a lot of used clothing, we have to process it, sift through it, figure out what's good, and figure out the value of it. And it's just a little bit too pressing, this sense of urgency. So we don't really have time to go through all of that. And unfortunately, we've had to take an awful lot of it either to a thrift store or to the dump, which is sad. And so we'd rather not have to go through all of that.
Well, you're a very polite person. You don't say directly, I have been to Unity Shop and I know you need checks payable to Unity Shop. Bottom line is we're going to put it on the TV. If the address, they can send a check, they can come by. I know you like the people to come and see what you do because that makes it so much more feasible and understandable. So again, I would appreciate it if people would write a check to Unity Shop and send it to you.
Thank you. Very helpful.
Again, as usual, I want to thank you very much for being on our show. It's always eye-opening, and I appreciate what you do, and looking forward to have you again in our show.
Thank you so much.
In hopefully much better circumstances and times.
We look forward to better times.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Here at Santa Barbara Design Center, we are dedicated to helping those affected by Santa Barbara's recent tragedies. We are prepared to offer our services on the repair and restoration of rugs and furniture, all at greatly discounted rates. We are a small community, and it's important that we take care of each other. We also wish to offer our appraisal services for insurance or legal needs at no charge. Lastly, if you have items lost or damaged beyond repair, we can assist in highly personalized redesign of your home. Santa Barbara Design Center is here for you. Lisa, thank you for being here today and continuing our theme of disaster recovery. We had the local designer here, and we would like to ask you some questions.
Sure.
So from a designer standpoint, what should people be thinking about as they prepare to rebuild their homes?
Yeah, it's an emotional time. It's going to be fraught with a lot of hurdles, both emotionally and hurdles about, can we build in the same place? What do we do? Are we stymied? We loved our house. There were things we always wanted to fix about our house. My great caution to everybody is, trust your gut, but take your time. Don't rebuild just to get some place to be in because you need that. Rebuild properly, rebuild in a manner that will stand the test of time, that works for you, and you'll hear a million voices. Just trust your gut.
Beautiful. How should they go about selecting a style for their home? I mean, there's going to be new homes, and we know Montecito is kind of Spanish colonial.
I think the best thing to do there again is to start with what we don't want and what we can't do. It's important to be realistic, not only about what will be able to be done, but budget. And if you've always wanted to do X, Y, Z, then try that, think about it, get prices for it, but don't try to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. Do something that, again, will stand the test of time. If it doesn't have to be mission, it doesn't have to be Spanish colonial, but it needs to be sympathetic with the surroundings, and it needs to make sure it doesn't look jarring against the landscape.
Beautiful. What is the most important thing you would like to say to those who are starting from scratch?
Well, I think we talked about that in the first question. It's such an emotional time. There will be a lot of things to think about. Let the professionals do their job. Don't overthink things that other people can do for you, and focus on what's going to make you happy, what's going to make your home a home that your family can live in, and let somebody else worry about and make sure it works, how the structure stands. Hire professionals. There's going to be, again, the urge to do things quickly, and that's not the right thing to do now. What the right thing to do now is intentional and with a sense of, I think, honoring what happened and purpose.
Lisa, thank you very much again to be on our show, and it is very important we have people like you to rebuild our community, and looking forward to see you again.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.